Slurpty-derp, my G's. One of my main beliefs with music production is that I believe influence and inspiration can truly come from anywhere. You know, even the smallest little things happening in your day-to-day life, which is what I'm going to go on to provide an example with using Mr. Snotnose very shortly. But I think it's silly to often try to copy a specific other musician or try to emulate a sound when the world is really, really your oyster. And although it's a tragic world we live in, I think in times of war, make art. And especially, I've gone a little bit sort of military, kind of sounding with this loop so far, purely just from drawing inspiration from, world events and things like that. But that's not the only thing I find inspiration in. And today I've got a snotty one-shot neurofunk bass stab, which I think sounds really cool. And the way that this came about, and I'm going to give this to you guys for free because I'm going to make you sit through something that you're not going to enjoy. And essentially what I've done is I've recorded myself, basically my nose, and it's very snotty. And basically I had these headaches. You guys know I've been ill. I've had like a viral bronchial infection for a little while, and it's healing up. I'm feeling a lot better, but it's still sort of lingering with like tiredness and a cough, but mostly these really, really intense headaches I've been having, and I've been having to lie down for a few hours at a time, and just it's not been going away. And I've realised it's probably like a sinus kind of thing and a mucus thing. Sorry, this is getting quite like gross, but yeah, here I am this morning, giving myself like a steam treatment with a big pot of hot water and a towel over my head and breathing in and out to try and, relieve some of the tension in my forehead from all the mucus. And here I am sort of snottily breathing in this steam, and my nose is just going like some kind of machine. And there's so many movements and weird little like sound effects and rhythms coming from my nose, and I thought I need to pull out my iPhone and just record this, and this is going to be the inspiration for today's sound design video. So I'm going to make you sit through a little bit of the sound because it's quite incredible. Feel free to screen record this and resample it and make your own version of the sound as well. Everyone who thought the slurp was bad is like, who hasn't already unsubscribed from the channel is definitely going to unsubscribe now. This is real life, people. It's harsh but true. The snottiness of my nose is real. But I'm going to make it into a wicked sound though. So just hang on. Oh, that bit was really horrible. Anyway, I'll stop you there. Let's have a little listen to what I've created, like using the snotty sound. And just to let you guys know, I will be back like with my face and everything, and I'll do some live streams and stuff like that very soon, as soon as I'm feeling a little bit better. But yeah, I thought, I can't sit around doing nothing all day. I've got like some lessons to teach and everything, but I still have a bit of spare time, so I thought I'd do a little bit of sound design and show you guys what I've been up to in Phase Plant. So here's the little like kind of switch up where we go into the Mr. Snot bass, and this becomes like a call or like a question bass, where before we kind of had, this main sort of bass up here was driving a lot of the track. In this section, I sort of switched up the energy by adding in this new sound as a like call sound. I would say call like CALL, like call and response. And that's often a nice way when you're feeling like you're not sure which direction to go in for your next kind of 16 bar. If you can just create a new sound that you can use either as a call or response, like especially like a bass sound, then that can kind of be used to switch up the section to make it more interesting. So let's hear how it sort of transitions into this new part with Mr. Snot.
The parables of Phase Plant.
So there he is, Mr. Snot himself. And yeah, maybe he does sound a little bit nasally, but essentially what I've done is I've taken, a part of the sample, just randomly sort of selected, run it through some modulation and some sine waves and some, modulating the volume on everything with an envelope, and then, cracking on with a bunch of effects to really like shape the sound. So yeah, let's have a little exploration of this sound and start off with the voicing.
Listen.
So there's three main parts to the voicing, and it's the original sample here, and then we've got a wavetable, which is a square to sine, and to be honest, it's mostly just at the sine end, so I guess it's a sinus infection. No, it's a sine wave. And then another sine wave down below, like an analog one, just providing like some backup bass reinforcement. And everything is global unison as well on the frequency stack, which really gets some interesting harmonics always into the sound. And with this specific one, it's just, you can hear how it like kind of makes things a little bit more high pitched already, even just using the sample. So what I've done for this, because it's like a stab, I've made like a main envelope, which is just controlling like a few things, but mostly the level of all of these oscillators. So basically it's just like a volume envelope to like create the shape of the stab. So we start off with the sample, and I'm choosing this point here based on how it's going to sound FMing into the wavetable. So if I add in the wavetable already, and I just go to the output here, put it into the phase section here, and this is being automated by, is it being automated by the envelope? It might not be actually. It's just going into the FM like normally. You know what? I think it is on the automation. My bad. Yeah, so the FM amount is automated on the same envelope as the volume. And, when we have this like result of how they're working together, like sort of set up, that's when I can like decide which part of the sample I want to use. And so obviously a lot of different sort of versions you can get. But I found here it had this like kind of nice sort of tone on it, where it was like a little sort of transient, little tonal transient without too much like high end either. And it just had a nice sort of pitch to it. So I thought I'd roll with that. And I would boost up the low end by adding just another sine wave here, which doesn't have any FM. It's just like a kind of extra sub oscillator. And also the level is tracked on the envelope here as well. So there we have like the main sort of part to like the voicing. And you can hear the global unison has made such a big difference, because it's really shifted things up in terms of the sort of harmonic spread. So, that's been on very much from the beginning as well. And it sounds quite nice when you turn up the range, but I like it just at 0 on this part. Anyway, let's move over to the effects.
Effects.
So it's quite sort of clean now, like currently, unlike my nose. But we've got like fairly clean sine wave sound and that kind of sample in there. So we're going to dirty things up a lot now with the distortion, and again with the sinusitis mode here. This is a really nice, just nice distortion tone always, and you use it in right amounts and on the right sounds, and you can get some wicked like extra harmonics in the sound. And what I've done is I've modulated the bias, because basically it really changes the tone, depending on where the sine distortion is sort of going into the sound. And so by having it sort of automate that as well, I get a really much more expressive overall kind of bass shot, which is really cool. So already there, I really like it. But I just wanted to experiment with a couple of other effects, and I ended up putting on this frequency shifter, which kind of tames the sound a bit and changes the sort of tone of it quite a lot. If you listen here, it almost takes some of that higher harmonic sine wave boominess away, and like focuses a little bit more on the low end and the high end. So it's almost like sculpting out a bit of the mid-range. Almost makes it a little bit quieter, but I just like the tone of it, and it just sounded like it would fit better in the track here. If I turn it back off, it's quite different. You know, that really boomy sine wave sound before, it's quite, yeah, it's quite in your face. And when I have this on here, it feels like things just mix in a little bit smoother. And it's purely a coincidence that I had it at -125 hertz. It sounded like it was still in pitch. And yeah, that was just kind of how I left it. Then I moved on to Snap Peep, which is wicked. And I made my first little preset here called Reverb Room, where I've just used basically the normal kilohertz reverb. And then really nice sort of template you can use, which is already set up, is just by throwing on the 3-band EQ. And then if you drag this like slider here, the low one, all the way to the right, that's up at sort of around 600 hertz. And then if you bring the kind of low decibels all the way down, that's a pretty nice basic sculpting out of low end for your reverbs that you should kind of do on everything. You know, you don't usually want any reverb lower than 500, you know, unless you're doing something sort of experimental and intro, you know, oriented. Then, you know, in the drop on your mid basses and things like that, you want to keep them quite powerful. So you want to avoid, you know, too much reverb in the low end. So that's a nice sort of balance always, just dragging that line up, turning that all the way down. And then we have like a nice high end kind of reverb, and then just like mixing that in on the overall Snap Peep here. Like 14%. So that's pretty cool. So you've got a bit of a kind of, yeah, room finish to the sound. And then these last two effects are just a bit of mixing and mastering, basically. A bit of saturation driving up. It's a little bit aggressive. We'll go a little bit lower, but that's basically just turning up the sound, you know, making it a little bit crunchier in the high end, just so it sticks out a bit, because I kind of turned it down a lot with the frequency shifter, so I wanted to like reamp up the volume a bit with the distortion. And then again with the high end as well, just boosted the high a little bit on a 3-band EQ there. And that's basically the effects. So let's have one little sort of glance over the post-processing.
Processing.
Now when I say post-processing, I basically mean there is no processing apart from an LFO tool, the little volume dip for the kick to cut through, so you can really still hear the punch of that nice long juicy kick drum I've got in there. But basically, yeah, one of the other things that I wanted to talk about, and I might do a separate video on this, about sound selection and composition basically being the two most important things and often overlooked things in music production. And often, you know, we get really bogged down or caught up in over-processing and all these crazy techniques when, you know, the actual sound and the actual composition weren't that great to begin with. So you really don't need to you know, get too worked up about, you know, parallel processing or things like that, because at the end of the day, what are you parallel processing, and was it good enough to begin with or not? And often the case is no. So it doesn't really, you know, it's like baking a cake but you use the wrong flour, so you know it's never going to be that good to begin with. Anyway, that's the Mr. Snot, and yeah, I'll leave this as a free preset for you guys as well, because like I said, I felt a bit guilty about making you sit through me sort of, yeah, basically motoring away with my nose. So yeah, to say sorry for that, you can have this one for free. Yeah, let me know if you like this sort of half-time stepper that we've got going on here. I may do a little bit more, and I made another cool sound for it recently actually here. You see how the energy of the track has completely shifted here to make this sort of second 16, you know, seem a lot different and have a different kind of feeling and different energy to it. And all that I've done to do that is literally just to try and create a new sound to fit in there. And then it's kind of slowed things down, having that stab in there with a bit of a gap and then going back to some of our older sounds is just creating a bit more space in the arrangement. So that's a nice way to just change up the energy a little bit there. So anyway, I hope that's a helpful tutorial for you guys today. Much love. Don't do anything I wouldn't. And I'll be back soon with a face and everything, hopefully. See you later.
Too great.